This Sports Social podcast is brought to you by BetVictor, where live streams, smart stats and in-play betting can help you make your best bet yet. 18 plus, begambleaware.org.
Between the kids being home and hosting, everything in our house gets used up in summer. With Instacart, I can save money by stocking up on all my favorite summer brands. I save time by getting everything delivered in as fast as an hour. And I save myself a sink full of dirty dishes by stocking up on paper plates for the annual summer cookout. Save more on summer essentials. Spend more time enjoying summer. Add summer to cart. Download the app to get free delivery on your first 3 orders. Offer valid for a limited time. Minimum $10 per order. Additional terms apply.
What's up? It's Kaylee Cuoco. When it comes to travel, we all have a happy place. I just went to my happy place. I just went to Maui, and it was truly amazing. Priceline has always been about getting you to your happy place for a happy price with deals you really can't find anywhere else. Like up to 60% off select hotels in Costa Rica or 5-star hotels for 2-star prices in Cabo.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
Hello and welcome to the 1865 match report. It's our first match report of the season as we look back on Forest's opening game of the Premier League campaign where they lost 2-1 to Arsenal at the Emirates Stadium. Steve Cooper's team were 2-0 down after 32 minutes. Goals from Eddie Nketiah and Bukayo Saka put Arsenal into a 2-goal lead. But in the second half, Forest responded and set up a dramatic finish with a goal from Taiwo Awoniyi on 82 minutes, which made it 2-1 and made for a nervy ending to the match in North London and had title-chasing Arsenal throwing defenders on and worrying about hanging on to their lead. But hang on to it they did, and Forest went down by 2-1 and opened up the Premier League season with a defeat, but a very encouraging one, I think most of us will agree. It's the first match report of the season and we've got 2 new voices joining us, George and Ellie. Hello, guys. You were both there. Welcome to 1865.
Hello.
Hello.
Great to have you with us. And you were both there at the Emirates today. What was it like? Was it a good atmosphere in the Forest End?
Yeah, I think it was, to be fair. On the train, it's always packed of Forest fans going from up north in the train station. On the tube, everyone was chanting and it was just great to be back. You know, it's only been, 76 days since that party that we had at Crystal Palace, but it did feel very similar to that day, to be fair. The Waka Waka chant came out once as well. So I think everyone was just relishing being back. And even though it's a daunting fixture against Arsenal, it was just the feel-good factor that we've got football back finally.
Yeah, it's good to have it back. And it was nice to have a break, but it feels like we're ready now for a new season. And yeah, bring it on. So team news for Forest. They lined up in a 5-2-3 formation, making his debut, Matt Turner in goal against his former club. Back 5 for Forest, Ole Aina, Joe Worrell, Scott McKenna, Willie Barley and Serge Aurier. Then a midfield 2 sitting of Ora Mangala and Ryan Yates. Danilo just in front of them. And then in front of Danilo, Morgan Gibbs-White and Brennan Johnson. So I'll come to you, Ellie. What did you think of the team news and the way that Steve Cooper lined up for this one? Was it what you was expecting?
Yeah, it was pretty much, well, not even pretty much, it was actually exactly what I would have expected. And there are some players where it was, or maybe do we put Elanga in straight away? Nico Williams, he ended the season on a high. Does he get a place in the team? But ultimately, I think Cooper picked the right team to start and made the right changes as well. I think putting Elanga in whilst he came on strong would be unfair to just drop him in the first team like that when he's got some fantastic competition. But what he's certainly doing is competing after that performance. Yeah. I'd like to see him in again, that's for sure. And I think I was very excited to see Ole Aina. I think he impressed. I was very happy about that. And obviously, we would have liked to have seen Awoniyi on from the beginning. I think I speak for all Forest fans, but he has obviously had that injury and it it was expected. I was surprised when I to see him on the bench, but very happy about that when I saw that. So it was what I was expected, and it was, in my opinion, the absolute right choice to make. I think Cooper picked well and made some fantastic changes throughout the match that changed the game, and it was a fantastic performance. Well, the second half, that is, and the second half was a fantastic performance. But overall, very happy with how it went, and a lot of promise, a lot of potential, and a very encouraging start to the league.
The match itself, kickoff was delayed for 30 minutes due to a problem with the e-ticketing system at the Emirates, which saw the vast majority of supporters still outside the ground at 12:30, which was the original kickoff time. Were you guys okay getting in? Was that just an Arsenal thing? Were the Forest fans all right, or were you all caught up in it as well?
I struggled actually. I was scanning my ticket and it wouldn't scan. And it's funny because I go with my grandparents and you think they might be the ones that would struggle. So they went through first straight away. I did mine and it was just not going. And they were stood in there laughing at me because I couldn't get through. So I actually did. It took me about a minute to get through. It did scan in the end, but I think they said it was a new system or something. But to be fair, like you said, at 12:30, we were looking around and it wasn't even half full. So it was probably the right decision, to be fair. I don't know if you struggled, Ellie.
I got in fine, to be honest. There were so many people outside. I entered about, probably quite stupidly, quarter past. But then walking around, I didn't really think much of it at the time. I was like, God, there's a lot of people coming in really late, isn't it? Yeah. But now I realise it's because their ticket wasn't working. But it seems to happen a lot in the Premier League, these sorts of random issues occurring or troubles getting in. Like last season, I've had problems in places.
Yeah.
It's silly, but at least everyone was able to get in. At least it was delayed for half an hour so people could all be in there, because it really was empty, I think, especially for Arsenal fans looking around.
That's a lot.
And to be fair, when we got to our turnstile, because we came from like the other side of the stadium, we were walking past all of the Arsenal turnstiles, and like Ellie said, it was like full to the rafters. And then it looked like a half an hour queue. Got to our bit, I think I was a bit before you. I think we went in about 12, and literally there was no queue at all for us. So yeah.
So the game kicked off eventually at 1:00, so half an hour late. And when the match started, Forest, I thought, looked okay. We knew that Arsenal would have most of the ball. We knew that Arsenal would come out and attack and really take the game to Forest. And obviously, we know Arsenal's quality. They were so close to winning the league last year and a couple of points away from toppling Man City. So this is an exceptional team. But Forest, I thought, handled them quite well in the opening stages. And despite Arsenal having more of the ball, they looked okay. They didn't look like they were getting pulled apart or kind of overrun or anything. What did you think, George?
Yeah, I think we did play well. It was certainly a long opening. I can remember it was after about 6 minutes. I thought, it must be about 20 minutes in. Looked up and it said 6. And I was like, wow, I don't think we've had a kick yet. But it's expected, isn't it? I mean, Cooper before the season said that he wants to play a style with more of the ball and to see the best of our attacking players a bit more. But you've got to be realistic with the start we've been handed by the Premier League. Thank you very much. Our first 4 away games. You've got to be realistic and know that that's not going to come straight away. And how we played last season was sitting back, you can play on the counter attack, and that's how we stayed up ultimately. So it's what the current players know best. And like you say, I mean, last season we played Arsenal. We just looked so easy to play against, and they were at a counter and still scored 5. Whereas this season, it was they had to work a lot harder for the eventual goals they got and for the chances they got. And there was far less openings, like you say. And we actually had the first big chance. And in the first half, I can't remember, apart from the 2 goals, many other chances. So I think Forest did handle Arsenal and their possession quite well.
It's funny because just before the Forest chance came that we're going to talk about, TNT on their coverage flashed up a possession bar that said Arsenal 90, Forest 10. When that bar came down, the ball went through and Johnson was in on goal. So Forest had the first big opportunity of the game. It was a header from Willy Boly that caught the Arsenal defence out. It looped over them. Morgan Gibbs-White was coming back from an offside position, but he wasn't offside. Brennan Johnson running through, he's onside. The ball comes to him. It's a bouncing ball, but he's one-on-one with Aaron Ramsdale, and he skews it wide and sends the ball into the stand. Ellie, that seemed like the opportunity for Forest that they'd been waiting for, and it really needed to go in, didn't it?
Oh my gosh. I mean, watching that from the stands, it was so far wide. I just thought it'd been deflected. So I was like, oh, okay, at least we've got a corner. No, I mean, it's not like Jono to do something like that. I think that's partially why I just assumed it had been deflected. But if we'd have started the game 1-0 up, it changes the game. Especially for a team like Forest, we know what we're like. We concede a goal, our heads go down, and we usually concede another in our current form. That's been a theme throughout the whole of last season. There's almost always another one to come not long after. So if we start 1-0 up, it's a different game entirely. Our confidence levels are up. I mean, look what happened when we did eventually score a goal. After that, then comes another chance. Suddenly Arsenal are a bit shaken. And 1-0, we could have easily held on. Well, easily is a strong word, but we did play well despite that. At the end of the day, you can't win a game by the chances you didn't make. We didn't score that goal, and we did pay for it. It happens. There's no need to, slaughter Jono for it, but I'm sure he will be upset with himself for that.
Yeah, you expect a player of his ability to finish a chance like that and get the goal and give Forest a platform at least. And yeah, like you say, you don't know. 1-0 up, the pressure's suddenly on Arsenal, and they've got to come out and try and score. And yeah, you never know really, those fine margins. But Arsenal did punish Forest in the end for that missed opportunity, and they went in front through Eddie Nketiah. This was 26 minutes. It came from a flick from Martinelli, sort of spun away from two players and flicked the ball inside for Nketiah. He cuts inside and his shot finds the back of the net. But it just deflects off Joe Worrell on the way through. And I do wonder, had it not been for that little nick, maybe Matt Turner would have been able to get something on it. But that's what happens, George, against these top teams. At that point, Forest had handled them pretty well, but the scoreline suggested different. Arsenal were in front.
And that's it. And I think with Johnson, we had the best chance of the game. You look at the Nketiah chance, he had a sea of players around him. And like you say, if that deflection didn't go off Worrell, I reckon Turner had that and even still got close to it after the deflection. And that just shows the fine margins of football. I don't want to sound like Mark Warburton used to. He used to say fine margins all the time, didn't he? But, Forest had that huge chance with Johnson, best of the game, and he doesn't score it. Arsenal get a sort of half chance and do. And even the most annoying thing about both goals we conceded, I think, was they were both from corners that we didn't clear properly. You can, maybe consider a really good possession goal, nice 1-2s against a team like Arsenal, you can hold your hands up. But when it's sort of of your own doing, it is annoying. But yeah, Martinelli, I think he looked like their most threatening player, to be honest. I know you've got Saka on the right, who's probably their best player and their most reliable player, but it's not like the other side's any weaker, because Martinelli, I think, had the better game of the two. And when it's your day, I don't think, honestly, that little flick that he did was that intentional. And if it was, it got lucky to find its target. And Nketiah was good. He was on the move. He was moving that way and received it well. But that's the difference in it. The teams at the top of the table seem to get that rub of the green. And like you say, Nketiah, it was the coolest man in the Emirates, to be fair. He didn't unleash it straight away. He got it onto his right foot, made sure he had the right time and space to do it. And even then, it had to take a deflection off Worrell to get through him. And, we conceded, and you just hoped that maybe our heads, like Ellie said, wouldn't drop and we'd carry on. But yeah, 29 minutes, just before half an hour, wasn't it? It's the first real chance of the game I can remember us conceding. So we did really well up to that point to keep them out for that long, I think.
And then it was 6 minutes later that Arsenal doubled their lead. And this goal, it's a moment of brilliance from Bukayo Saka. The shot from 25 yards. Turner's got no chance at all saving that. The way he hits it with his instep and it flies. But as much as the goal, you've got to give Saka credit for what he does. Again, could Forest have prevented this? George, you mentioned there maybe Forest could have done better in the build-up to it defensively.
Yeah, like I say, it was from a corner, and actually Forest had been in possession when they had very little possession of the ball in the first half. I think it was 16% by the end of the half. It was like it was the ball was on fire. They were sort of trying to get rid of it, and no one wanted it. And then sort of the one time where Gibbs White had it in the corner, and sort of everyone was, it was like, I don't know, he'd got a disease. Everyone was running away. Some of the players were running into the middle. Other ones were running up front. And Gibbs White is swarmed by red shirts. And you're thinking, right, just get rid of it. Just get rid of it. But he holds on to it too long, concedes it. And then, once you give Bukayo Saka space on that right channel, he's always going to do what he's doing. And like I say, Forest were in transition. They were ready for that tack. So they weren't in position to defend him cutting inside. And, there's not many players better at world football cutting inside on the left foot and curling it like Saka did. So I think that was the only time in the game that he successfully did that. I think Aina and McKenna did well down that side, but you give these top players one chance like that and they'll take it. And that's the difference at this level.
Yeah, exactly. Ellie, at that point, I was worried that it was going to go the same way as last season, where Forest capitulate and Arsenal run up a score of 3, 4, 5 goals. But actually, Forest did okay, didn't they, after they conceded that second? Heads didn't go down and they just stuck to the game plan.
I think, yeah, we all worry with Forest away, given our record. But like you say, I think the best way to describe our first half, I would say in one word, would be lethargic. I think we were nowhere near as scrappy as we were last season at this point, where it was very disjointed and we had all these new players and no one knows who's where, what our team is. So we had a lot more order in that sense. We were a lot tidier compared to last season. But I think we also were lacking as much intensity as we know we can give in the first half. I think that's probably the best way of putting it. And I think we went 2-0 down, but the way we were playing, I actually didn't feel stressed. I don't know, maybe I was the only one in the stands, but I felt like actually we can hang on to this. I honestly didn't think we were going to score a goal if we continued playing the way we had played in the first half. I thought we were going to hang on to a 2-0. But we came in the second half, and I think Cooper must have had a good chat with them. I don't know what was said, but the second half, I think we came on stronger and they came on slightly weaker, I would put it. Or maybe we just made them look, to be fair, a little bit weaker because of how well we played. We came on with a bit more intensity. And it was quite nice to see in the second half, especially, that we didn't let our heads go down and go, oh gosh, let's just try and, protect our goal from conceding more and just panic and just focus on keeping it 2-0. It was nice to see that Cooper thought, actually, we've got enough here. We can score a goal. We can challenge them. And I really love to see that. And I can understand why from the beginning the game plan was to try not to concede because of our record away from home, which is why I appreciate the lineup that we had, because I personally advocate for Nico Williams because I think he's fantastic. But in this game, I think it was the right choice for Oreo. And we ended up playing much higher intensity, especially with Elanga, which I'm sure we're all going to talk about. It was fantastic. The way that we were able to keep our heads up and decide, actually, we can come back into this just because they're Arsenal, just because they finished second last season. This is still a game that we can get some points from. And it's showing a lot of promise in mentality as well as skill and talent. And that's so important. And Arsenal will certainly know all about that, bless them, after last season. So I think it's very important that we're able to stay so resilient after conceding 2 goals. And they did us so proud.
And I think it shows that Forest are continually developing. I think they've always done that under Cooper. And I think that's a real quality of Cooper's management as well. But it seems like we're trying to put right the mistakes that were made away from home last season. And yes, it might not always be pretty, particularly in games away to the top six, but it's kind of what you've got to do just because the golfing quality is so much. But I think Forest, the way that they competed in that second half, it was something to take real encouragement from, particularly with the next round of away fixtures to come when you've got the likes of Chelsea away, Man United away. It could be very much more of the same. Just a quick one then for how the second half went. So, yeah, I think Forest stuck to the game plan, but just came out a bit more, competed a bit more, and had a bit more fight about them, I think is probably the best way of putting it. Arsenal did still have some chances. Matt Turner made a really good save from Declan Rice, a 20-yard shot. I think that came off Worrell slightly as well, and it was creeping into the bottom corner, but Turner got across and palmed it onto the post, and it was a really good save. And then in the 71st minute, Forest made their first changes. So Taiwo Awoniyi and Nico Williams came on for Danilo and Ola Aina. And then on 80 minutes, Anthony Elanga comes on for Brennan Johnson. And within 2 minutes, Elanga and Awoniyi, the two substitutes, have combined and created this fantastic counter-attacking goal that gave Forest hope. And George, watching the footage back of it, it's an Arsenal corner, it's cleared, it comes to Awoniyi, he feeds it left to Elanga, who sprints up the left touchline a good 50 yards into the box. Awoniyi's there, he's carried on his run, and he taps it in from 6 yards. But that was an electrifying moment, wasn't it? I can only imagine what it was like watching it live in the ground.
Yeah, that moment was something special. But I think, like you say, electrifying. It was that spark that Forest had been missing up front for the entire game. Really, I think Awoniyi was a huge difference. Obviously we had sort of Gibbs, White, and Johnson in that forward position, but it was like we had 10 men because we had no one to hold up the ball. And I had looked at one stat before this game, and I was interested before we came on the pod. Awoniyi had 11 touches in the 20 minutes he played, and Johnson had 17 in the whole of the game. And that's the difference, I think. It's no fault of Johnson, really, that he's not that type of player to be that number 9. But when you've got someone like Awoniyi who goes out of his way to get involved, to drop deep, we can play off him, and suddenly then you connect the forward to the back to the middle, and we just look more of a team as opposed to split apart, if you see what I mean. So yeah. I think Elanga brought that energy that we were missing as well. I think we all knew he was quick, but I sort of wondered if he had end product. And Awoniyi did fantastic. I mean, Elanga we know is so fast, but Awoniyi gives him the ball, and then he's with him pretty much the whole way as Elanga sprints down that left wing. No one was catching him. No one. Usain Bolt would have done well to catch him. So he did brilliantly down that left-hand side to get in that position. And don't be fooled by Awoniyi, how easy he made it look. That was not an easy finish. And what I like the most about it is he was never in that position to score. It was never between those two defenders right until the second where Elanga was about to cross it. And then he darted into that zone, got there first, ahead of the keeper, ahead of, was it Ben White or Saliba, the other defender, and tapped it home. And I think that's that proper centre-forward play that Forest don't have without. I think he's the only player that brings that in our squad. And that's why when he's injured or for the AFCON later in the season, it's a big worry. But yeah, those pair, they brought the energy, they brought the life, they brought the fight that Forest attack was missing. And from then, I mean, I thought might even win it, let alone get a draw. So, and it was amazing in the away end to have that moment. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, it did look good when that goal went in the away end. And there was some encouraging link up between Awoniyi and Elanga, which I'm excited to see more of, the more time that they get to play together. Awoniyi just came on and was a complete handful. I thought, well, I think he's getting better all the time. He seems to be really growing into that number 9 role and being the main striker for Forest. I'm hoping that he can come in and start the next couple of games, but it was understandable, I think, Ellie, given the fitness concerns over him in pre-season, that he was on the bench for this one, but it allowed him to come on and make such a big impact.
Absolutely. I mean, especially with our injury record last season, I think we all agree we want to keep our players uninjured as possible. If it means that he has to come off the bench, I'd rather that than he comes on from the beginning and gets injured and doesn't come back for however many games. But he's on an incredible form. I think at the end of last season, it was 6 goals in 4 games. And it's almost like he just continued. There was no holiday, no time off. He's still on incredible form. I think he's going to score a lot of goals this season.
Go on, put a number on it, Ellie. Put a number on it.
Oh, I like that. Oh, okay. You know what? I think he's going to score 14. That's really specific, but I feel like he's going to score 14 goals. He's going to be our top scorer, and he's just on an incredible run of form. The way he came on instantly, he holds up the ball so well. And with Elanga's pace and energy, it just worked so brilliantly. And how you can come on and within 2 minutes do that, score a goal and just change the whole game like that. I changed the whole feeling. The whole feeling in the stadium switched on its head entirely is just insane. It's very impressive. I don't know about you guys, but I was just shocked. I wasn't ready for it to change that quickly. I had full faith in them, don't get me wrong, but I wasn't ready for it to just happen like that. I was like, wow, that's some efficiency, that is. And honestly, the atmosphere in the ground was in the Forest end was incredible. It just switched on its head. It's like we all suddenly thought we might win this, we could come back now. Absolutely incredible from Awoniyi. He's only going to get better. Like say, he's developing all the time. The consistency to score. What is that now? 7 goals in 5 games, if we can include the end of last season.
Yeah,
that's ridiculous. That really is just like that. And he's only going to score more. He's only going to keep getting better. 14 goals. I put a number on it now, and you can hold to that.
You heard it here first.
Like you said, Stephen. Sorry, like you said, Stephen and Ellie as well, that he keeps getting better. Like I often thought his downfall was on the ball. I thought he looked a bit clumsy and out of his depth when he had to play football. But actually, like you said, his layoff for Elanga was excellent, and his hold-up play, and we can play off him a lot more. So I think he's getting better every time he plays. He's getting better as a footballer, and yeah, it's exciting to see the player he's going to turn into. You said 14. He got 10 last season and was injured for a quarter of it. So I think that's quite realistic, Ellie. I like your prediction.
Might be under predicting, might get a bit excited, but I'd say 14. I just feel it. I was
going to say 15.
Oh, just to one up me.
16.
16.
So Forest at that point, then 2-1, as you say, Ellie, it just changed the feel of the game, and suddenly Arsenal looked shaky and worried. And in fact, they brought on Gabriel, another defender, to try and shore things up at that point, because they had looked reasonably comfortable. It felt like, they'll probably win this 2-0 and that'll be that. But yeah, the Forest goal changed things, and Forest almost equalised not long after. It was Morgan Gibbs-White had an effort from outside the box, which on the volley just went over the bar, and it was just that feeling of, come on, lads, you've got him here. And they definitely had Arsenal worried for that last 10 minutes and made life uncomfortable for them. Forest made 2 more changes. Chris Wood and Chet Kouyaté came on just as we went into 90 minutes, replacing Joe Worrell and Orel Mangala. So Forest went back to a 4 at the back at that point. I thought Chris Wood as well, he was running around and he was really getting himself involved in things, and he looked up for it, which was good to see, because he seemed to struggle last season to really find his place in the team, and he looks hungrier already this season. What do you think, George?
Yeah, I hope so, because like I mentioned earlier, when AFCON comes around, someone's got to fill the void left by Awoniyi. I think maybe some of the criticism is a bit unfair because Forest don't really play to his style, but then you've got to adapt as a Premier League striker to your club, I suppose. Yeah, he threw himself around a bit. He got involved. I still don't think he's probably ready to challenge Awoniyi for that number 9 shirt. But, he's got Premier League experience. He's scored quite a few goals for Burnley and fitted in well with their system. So I think it's good competition to have. And if he keeps showing that desire and that passion for the shirt, it's all we can ask for as supporters. And he scored that important goal against Man City. He clearly knows where to be. We're never going to forget him for that goal against Man City. So, yeah, I just hope that his confidence and his belief can carry on, and maybe he can one day challenge Awoniyi.
In the end, it finished Arsenal 2, Forest 1. Forest couldn't quite find that equaliser. But despite the defeat, it certainly felt more positive, certainly in that second half, the way that Forest approached it and almost managed to get something out of the game. It's an encouraging defeat. In the post-match interview, Steve Cooper, he mentioned that first half and he said he was disappointed with the way that Forest approached that first half and elements of their play. He said they needed to fight more, they needed to compete more, and that really came through in the second half. So you could see that difference between first and second half. But I want to raise another point that Steve Cooper makes in his post-match interview, and that's a penalty shout that Forest had. It was a corner late in the second half, Willy Bolly with the header. At the time, it looked like it just dropped quite tamely to Aaron Ramsdale. You thought maybe he's only just glanced it with his head volley. But when you look at the replay from behind the goal, it appears that the ball hits Declan Rice's hand and drops down, and Ramsdale gathers it. But this didn't go to VAR, and there was no challenge in the stadium from the players or anything. But normally you think VAR would be, at the very least, taking a look at an incident like that. And that's the point that Steve Cooper made as well in his post-match interview. He said that it should have gone to VAR. And in fact, the VAR team let the referee down by not reviewing it and at least having a look. Ellie, would you agree with that from what you've seen of the incident and what Cooper has said?
I mean, absolutely. I think George was the same as well, and possibly everyone who was in the ground. We didn't notice at the time that there was any potential penalty shout. I was not even aware until after the match, and you showed me the video and said, yeah, there's something could have been there. But that's the point. That's why VAR is there. What is the point in bringing in this new technology just to not use it in moments where you can't see it from your angle and the referee can't tell? I mean, I didn't hear anyone make any sort of call from the stands because we wouldn't have noticed at all. And it just seems ridiculous that VAR didn't even take a look. If VAR had looked at it and not given it, I can see the argument for it, and it would be consistent with what happened at Man United last season with Harry Maguire, but also inconsistent with other times, but we won't get into that. But at least there is an argument. At least it's, there is some sort of consistency. But to not even take a look at all is just ridiculous. You may as well not have had VAR there. What was the point in having that technology and having it installed and all those costs just to never look at it at moments when the referee most needs VAR? It is really poor from the VAR team. As harsh as I am being, I realise I'm being very harsh. But we're going to be. I'm not saying it would have changed the game or anything, but to not look at it is disgraceful, really. You take a look, maybe it was nothing, but that's the whole reason they're there. They did really let down the referee.
Did you want to come in on that as well, George?
Yeah, same as Ellie, not a clue that even happened, to be fair. I mean, I would say in the game, I don't know if you feel the same, Ellie, but I didn't know VAR was there. It didn't have any impact on the game. There was no checks. So in terms of a fan experience, that's how you want it to be. But you expect these little things to be going on in the background at the same time. And often VAR seems to make up things. You look at that and think, have they got that from that? So that's one of these incidents where maybe they just look at it twice, think, oh, we'll check that. And even if they'd have just checked it and the thing came up on screen, checking penalty, no penalty, fair enough. With my Forest hat on, I think probably could have been a penalty because, like I said before we started recording, if you score a goal and it comes off your hand, it's disallowed. But then if it's the other way around, would it have it's not a penalty. Like, say if it had headed it had gone off Rice's hand and in the net, would that not have been a goal because it came off his hand? Do you know what I mean? So it's just that clarity that you want. And if I'm being honest, probably wasn't a penalty, but at least to check it and to show that you are, well, there's a VAR there, paying attention to the match would have been nice. So, but yeah, like I say, we had no clue that even happened in the ground, to be fair.
Right, interesting. So we'll leave things there for a second, and we'll hear now the opposition view on the game. So it's over to our Arsenal fan, Chris Harwood.
After a delayed start due to ticketing issues, the dawn of a new season began for Arsenal at the Emirates. Arsenal, facing our old goalkeeper Matt Turner for the first time, needed to answer a fundamental question which we needed to overcome from last year. It had plagued us all season. Are we able to close a game out and secure all 3 points? After an early opportunity by Johnson, we finally made our 90% possession count. A neat bit of skill from Martinelli on the left allowed Eddie Nketiah to put the ball past Turner. 1-0. This lead was doubled by our star boy Saka with a great finish. After just one game, will he strike a ball as good as that all season? I'm not so sure. We played all 3 of our new signings. Timber had an absolutely great game at full-back before going off injured, while Arsenal were unlucky not to extend the lead further, particularly from record signing Rice. And that miss led to another familiar situation happening for us, not being able to close out a game. After a great run from Elanga down the left-hand side, inevitably a clean sheet was lost for us again. I'm still not sure about our other signing, Havertz. Another great answered question. Will Arteta be able to get the best from him? He wants him included in the team, which is understandable considering the fact he cost 65 million. But at what cost to the rest of the team? We don't know his best position, and at times the formation that we seem to be playing worked, and at others everything just seemed disjointed. But perhaps that is just a sign of the fact that we are at the start of a new season. Overall, I'm sure that won't be our best performance of the season, but I'm really glad to see Forest continue to do well. I hope they have another great season, particularly with your new American in goal. Arsenal have a really long year ahead of us, and I just hope we can scale some of those heights that we had last season and ultimately rediscover how to keep that clean sheet.
NFL Sunday Ticket is now on YouTube and YouTube TV, which means that it just got easier to be an NFL fan, even if you live far away. Like maybe you like the Bears, but you're hibernating in Panthers territory. But with NFL Sunday Ticket, your out-of-market team is never more than a short distance away. Specifically, the distance from you to your remote control. NFL Sunday Ticket, now on YouTube and YouTube TV. Go to youtube.com/presale to get $50 off.
Terms and embargoes apply. Offer ends 9/19. No refund. Subscription auto renews.
The 1865 Match Report.
Thanks to our Arsenal fan, Chris Harwood, for the opposition view there. So coming back to the game and the approach that Forest had, the low block has become a bit of a popular word now in football. It can be used in quite a critical manner, but for Forest, it's proven to be quite an effective tactic, certainly under Steve Cooper last season in the Premier League and turning around our fortunes a bit away from home. Forest went with that approach again against Arsenal and tried to stay in the game and then at the end come on stronger and try and catch Arsenal out. Do you think that approach was justified, George, given the way that the game played out and how Forest went about their business?
I think it was. I think if we try and play Arsenal at their own game, that's not going to end well with the attacking players that they've got, to be fair. So I don't think that was going to work. I think even Cooper and you guys critical of the first half, I think it probably needed to be like that because Forest had to probably get to half time, not out of the game. At 2-0 away at the Emirates, it doesn't look good, it doesn't sound good, but you're still in the game if you get an early goal or if something goes your way. So I think we had to do that for the first half and then maybe build. And actually, I was watching the overlap, Gary Neville's The Overlap, and Jamie Carragher said on it that the way Forest played at the back end of last season, he was really impressed, and that's maybe the way we need to keep playing. And as much as a fan, maybe it's not the most attractive way of football, it's not the thing you want to see every week. If it's getting your results and if it's getting you places, maybe that's sort of the way you have to go. Obviously, if you play like next week Sheffield United or things like that, you've got to be adaptable and be able to have more of the ball against teams like that. But if we have a strategy, I think, to be able to go to these places like Old Trafford in a few weeks, then Stamford Bridge, then the Etihad, and if we've got a strategy that the players know well and they know how it works, and if it goes how it did today, it so nearly came off. If we have players like Awoniyi and Elanga who made the good things happen, playing from the off in that style, then it could be a good thing for Forest. So while I don't think it's something we should be aiming to play all season, I think for the initial few games and away games while we're sort of finding our way again, I think it's how we're getting points, how we stayed up last season, and it's not where I want to be, but it's a starting point.
And that's the big thing as well, the difficulty of Forest's first few away games and the quality of opposition that they're up against. We've got to get used, I think, to this style of play, certainly for this first run of opening away fixtures. Ellie, I said in the last podcast that I don't want a tough away start to cloud judgment on how the team's performing, because you're not going to really judge a season on how you perform away to Arsenal, to Man United, Chelsea, Liverpool, etc. But the way that Forest performed today, I think, does give us encouragement going into those games and for the rest of the season as well.
I mean, absolutely. I think if we'd have lost and played quite badly, I probably would be saying the exact opposite, saying no, it doesn't matter. But the fact that it's not even just about the scoreline for me, and I think I speak for the majority of fans. It's the way we went about the game, the manner of which we played the game and got 2-1. It's the fact we started slow. We did concede 2 goals, and that is something that we need to work on, is after conceding one, try not to concede another straight away. But the fact that we then came back from that is really, really promising. And especially against teams like Arsenal, when we know they have so much to offer. They have a lot going on that is difficult to handle. I mean, Martinelli had a fantastic game. I know he had that really cool flick spin thing that everyone's probably talking about, but that was an accident. But other than that, he was really cool. And I just feel like the manner of which we came back and developed throughout the game as well. You could see the players growing in confidence, minus that little blip like we usually have with conceding straight afterwards, growing in confidence throughout the game and kind of adapting as they go. And it was really, really promising. And I actually feel so much more confident after this first match than I did going into the season. I was quite a lot more nervous than I was last season, quite randomly. Not sure if I speak for other fans as well, but I was perhaps overly confident before last season, but I was quite nervous this time round. And they've really, really come together so quickly against a very difficult side to play that most sides, even Man City, would not really want to face in their first match away as well. And 2-1, that's not a bad scoreline. And like you say, we shook them. We made it difficult for them. They were trying to hang on by the end. We could have, in theory, maybe had a penalty. And, it was very close by the end of the game. We looked very well matched, if not, but in the last 15 minutes, we looked the better side. So there's a lot of promise for these next few scary games that we've got. And to draw upon what George said earlier about the way we're playing, and how we play away from home in these first few games, I think we just have to keep going forward for those away games the way we are. And like George said so rightly, it might not be attractive, but it's working quite well so far. It's doing what we want it to do, and I think at the end of the day, we want to take home the points. That's what we all want as fans. But I'm feeling very confident for the next few games, and if we continue to develop the way we are and at the rate that we are, we could really win a couple of these away games, I would say. Maybe I'm too overconfident, but that was a good performance in that second half, especially the final 15 minutes.
How did you think Forest's new signings got on, and who in particular impressed you in this game?
I think we've spoken enough about Elanga, so we'll put him to the side. If you've not heard that, scroll back. I think Turner, you've got to be impressed by him. There's not much he could have done for either of the goals, really. And like I say, got close to that deflected one, made a good save. And I can't remember who, but there was a shot that was like bouncing and it was going into the top corner and he made a good save. I forgot what happened there, but I know he made a good save there. I don't know if you guys remember that, but
I think it was Rice, wasn't it? Just after the one that he tipped onto the post, he had another opportunity, and yeah, that was a good save.
And like I say, Aina, I was impressed by as well with Saka on that right hand side. Like I say, he only got in and cut inside, and obviously he scored that, but that was from a corner where probably no one was in position. So I think him and McKenna, I was really impressed by. I think McKenna I chose as my man of the match on the train home anyway. But I think Aina, for his first, obviously he's had Premier League experience before, but his first game in our system is a right footer on the left as well. So that's not the easiest thing to do. I don't think we've actually got a left-footed left back at the minute with Toffolo out and Richards, who knows. So I think Aina did well as well. I don't know what you think, Ellie.
Yeah, I think I was always very positive and excited about him. But maybe that's just me always being quite excited whenever we sign someone. But I think he really did come on well, considering he's just dropped into the team, and he looked relatively. I know he did have Saka, so no one's going to be comfortable, but he dealt with him relatively well as you really can do with a player like Saka, because we know what he is. He's class.
Yeah.
But and like Elanga, like we've spoken a lot about Elanga. The pace is exciting, I think, is one key point about Elanga that in our current squad is very exciting. We don't have a lot of pace. We have Johnson, who we know is very quick. And I think seeing how quick he was, because it was freakishly fast, is very exciting. So I think that can really add to our game. And like I say, Matt Turner, there wasn't much he could do about those 2 goals. The first one deflected. That's really unlucky. Unlucky for Joe Worrell, unlucky for Forest. Not much that could be done about that. But I think all 3 of them made a good positive impact, played well, didn't seem too nervous, didn't seem too disjointed. And I think they all fit in really. I mean, I know obviously Matt Turner's a keeper, so it's a bit different, but they all fit very nicely into the team. And I think they all added to our squad.
And it was a lot easier to have just 2 new signings and then one coming off the bench than last season when we went to Newcastle, having 9 new players, whatever we had. Everyone looked like they'd never played in the Premier League before. And that, I think that was I know we had some bad away days, but that Newcastle game was a real wake-up call as to, wow, this is the Premier League. And I know Newcastle did well last season, but Newcastle weren't even seen as one of the big teams when we played them. And still, we looked absolutely starstruck. So I think it's nice to have 2 new players as opposed to 9.
We weren't disjointed as we were last season at the beginning of the season. There was some fluency and good communication between players. And I think that's only going to build. And if they're already starting so comfortably within the team and able to play off each other so well, you already mentioned Elanga and Awoniyi. That was beautiful, I think, is a word I'm going to use. It's only going to get better. It's a strong start from all 3 of them, and I'm very excited about what more they can bring in the upcoming games.
And looking forward to the next game, Sheffield United at home on Friday night. Forest's first home game of the season, and it was well documented just how good Forest's form was last season and the big role it played in keeping them in the Premier League. Home form is going to be important early on this season, given the difficult away fixtures that lie ahead. And this one does feel like an opportunity for Forest to get some points on the board. Sheffield United have got promoted, but they haven't really strengthened. They've lost key players like and Die, and this week Sander Berger. So what would you like Forest to perhaps do differently to what they did against Arsenal, against Sheffield United, or would there be particular players that you want to see in and playing from the start against them?
I think maybe a system change to maybe incorporate some of our more attacking players, because I actually think Sheffield United got worse because they had those two loanee players from Man City that they had last season who were brilliant for them, and then Ndai and Berger. I'm excited to see Ahmed Hodzic as well, because he was at Forest for a few years and he's looking good for them. But I saw that lineup today, and they had Jack Robinson, Ben Osborne, in their mid and like on their left side, and Max Lowe. And you're thinking, is that really a Premier League left side? So I know it's probably rich for a Forest fan to talk about that with maybe some of our selections last year. But yeah, I think Forest have got to attack that game, believe they can win it. It's probably too early for a must win, but you look at the fixtures we've got, and I think Marinakis will be a lot less patient than he was last year, because he'll probably see Forest as an established Premier League club. And if we go our first 6 games getting 1 or 2 points, that could easily be the end of Cooper. So it's probably not a must win, but it's a game Forest have got to approach believing they can win. And a game where I think they'll probably have a lot more of the ball, hopefully, than they did against Sheffield United. And it's probably a time where, could mention this sort of change of style, it's where he can really show that by playing maybe Gibbs White, Johnson, if he's still here, Elanga and Awoniyi, if fit on the same pitch, see how they get on, see if that gels. Nia Carter was obviously on the bench, although I think McKenna did fabulously today. Maybe he can get in. So I don't think too many changes are in order, but maybe go to 4 at the back, play a bit more expansive, and see if those 4 players can work well together.
You agree, Ellie?
Yeah, I think everything you said really I absolutely agree with. In terms of Sheffield United, I think they're going to have a very tough season, to say the very least. What was the final score today? They played, was it Crystal Palace?
They lost 1-0.
Yeah, 1-0 Palace. Yep.
Yeah, and it was at home for them, wasn't it? And I think I was listening earlier, and there was some ridiculous stat of, I think it was 24. Crystal Palace had 24 shots, which is, for an away fixture, when it's a team like Crystal Palace, not the likes of Arsenal, Man City, Man United, I think they've had a shock. They've really had a shock in terms of the step up to the Premier League. It's going to be tough for them. And I think it doesn't mean we should disrespect them in any way by being arrogant about it or feel too comfortable, but I don't think complacency is something Forest has ever been a victim of. But like you say, I think putting some more attacking players potentially, but also looking at it, who do you want to drop after what was actually quite a very good performance from us? I think we all would like to see Awoniyi or Elanga, depending on fitness levels, and I think it's a difficult one, but not so much that I'd like to see us sit back, and I think we can all agree on that. I always feel, especially after last season, a home game, regardless of who we're playing, is a win. Absolutely, that is a win, or maybe a draw, maybe a draw, and that might be quite cocky, but our home form is really quite good. We've got the fans behind the players. So I am going into this game of, this is a game we should be winning. Not necessarily not even because it's Sheffield United and we know that they're struggling, but also because this is our fortress now, so I'm sure they'll go in much more confident. And I think we'll play better football even than we did at Arsenal, because of confidence. Even though they might not necessarily be as good a side, I think we will look even stronger and play better.
So we'll wrap things up there. Thank you, George, and thank you, Ellie, for coming on. And we'll be hearing from you throughout the season. And yes, looking forward to Sheffield United at home next Friday. Thank you to our Arsenal fan, Chris, for providing the opposition view. And thank you as well, listener, for joining us. If you are new to 1865, let me tell you that we produce match reports after every Forest game, and we will be doing that throughout the season. So do subscribe to make sure that you don't miss any of our match reports throughout the campaign. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, goodbye.
Social Podcast Network.